doing what we're doing. Okay, I know that you guys can solve an equation like this in your sleep right now. X plus 2 equals 5. I know a bunch of you are sitting here like, oh my gosh, I know what that is. Obviously, that's 3. But I want to make sure we understand a couple of the things about solving equations. Okay, so there is a fancy word that we use for what we're doing when we're solving an equation. Okay, you guys use like little balance beams when you were in elementary school where you put like the little blocks and you weighed something out to see how many blocks it weighs. So I've got the equation x plus 2 equals 5, and you'll notice that the left side of my equal sign, the x plus 2, is over there on the left side of my balance beam. I've got an x and I've got 2 little units, so there's my x plus 2. The equal sign is kind of like the middle of your balance beam. It's what keeps everything equal. And of course, I've got that 5 on the right side of my balance beam, right? So this is actually a physical model that represents what x plus 2 equals 5 looks like. Now, I know, again, we're using a baby example to show you something harder, okay? What would be my step? Because I know we already know. If I were trying to solve this equation, what would I do? Yes, sir? Why would I subtract 5? You're right. Tell me why.
To get x.
To get x. What am I doing with to get it? What do you mean to get x? To get the value of x. So I used to have. I had a well, I didn't have it. My ex-husband had this like really gross dog that I like really hated that was like big and a really big pain in the butt, to be honest. He was one of those slobbery like St. Bernard dogs. And we would take him, when we take him to the vet, part of his checkup is that you'd have to figure out how much he weighed. Okay, well, not only was that dog gross, but he was also very stubborn. Okay, at the vet, they have this big scale for the dog to stand on, but that dog isn't going to stand on that scale because, again, he's a really big pain in my butt, and I'm really glad that in the divorce my husband took him because can't stand him, okay? So I used to actually have to stand on the vet scale with that stupid thing to see how much it weighed. Now, what's the problem with me standing on that big scale holding that dang dog? Yep. Yeah, it's giving my weight and his weight, right? Okay, so what we've got right now, when we're solving an equation, we're trying to figure out how much does that variable weigh, okay? But the problem right here, and I think this is where you were getting to, Jai, is that x isn't by itself right now. It's just like me holding that dog, okay? We're on the scale together. I don't want to know how much, so we always had to take our weight together, and then we'd have to subtract mine out to figure out how much the dog weighs. Same idea here. In order to figure out what balances out with that x, you do have to do exactly what Jai said. You got to go, you got to subtract. You got to get rid of those x's. But what's going to happen to my balance beam? I did exactly what Jai just told me to do. I took the 2 away from the balance beam, but what happened to it now? Am I good?
Nope.
No, why not? It's out of whack. It's not even. What do I have to do to make it even again?
Add the 2.
I got to subtract the 2 from the right-hand side. It was nice and balanced, okay? If I subtract 2 out of there, I got to subtract 2 to the other side. So one of those, expressions that you always hear from teachers where they're like, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. Okay, that literally explains like why I had to do that to get it back into balance. If you take 2 away from one side, you have to take 2 away from the other side to keep it balanced. So that's literally why we have that rule. It works exactly the same if you have a negative number. Okay, so instead of the equation x plus 2, we're going to take a look at x minus 2 equals 3. Okay, I still don't have an x that is by itself. What am I going to have to do this time in order to get the x by itself? Because right now there's 2 little negative balloons hanging out with it. What's going to cancel out a negative 2?
2.
What's a positive 2, right? So I'm going to do exactly the same thing here where I'm going to cancel out the minus 2 by adding
2.
a positive 2, but once again, it's out of whack. Why is it out of whack? Why is it not balanced? Because I got to do the same thing to the other side. So it's very handy to help us remember, why do we do the same thing to both sides of the equal sign? We do the same thing to both sides because an equation literally means we got to keep everything equal. So here, I had those 2 negatives. I put those 2 positives to cancel it out. So now I've got just an x by itself. So my x balances out with a 5. I know you guys have been doing these little baby one-step equations since you were babies, right? But it's helpful to understand